About a year ago, I was sitting at home when I got a random call from my mom. She told me this story, which I had her write down for me later on. The following story is copied directly from what she wrote. I know I must have been 11 or 12 years old. I know this because I was still riding my sister's hand-me-down blue girl's bicycle. I got a new 10 speed bike at 13 years old, and I weighed around 74 pounds, which I'll explain later. I was born in 1965, so that makes this year that happened around 1976 or 1977. It was a long time ago, but certain parts are burned into my memory. I was wearing jeans, but I don't remember what was on top, so it must have been around late spring or early fall, because if it was hot like the middle of summer, I would have been wearing shorts. I was tall for my age, thin, and had shoulder-length light brown hair. Our house was about a 3-minute bike ride away from the Jewel/Osco store. I often rode up there to buy myself a sweet treat, as I did that day. I parked my bike outside the door and went to the Osco side of the store, where the candy aisle was located near the door. I looked over my choices and finally settled on a bag of sugar babies. At some point during this time, a man came down the same aisle and started to talk to me. I was naive and shy, and raised to never say no to an adult, so I just quietly turned away and walked down the opposite end of the aisle and turned back up into the greeting card aisle. He followed me and maneuvered in front of me. I don't remember everything he said, but I do remember him saying he could guess my weight and asked if he can prove it to me. Of course, I shyly said okay. He reached behind me, putting his hand between my legs and lifting up on my butt. He guessed 74 pounds, and he wasn't that far off. Things didn't feel right, but I couldn't bring myself to protest. There were no other people in the aisles. Then he offered to buy my candy for me. I tried to say no, but he insisted. I said okay. He smiled and told me to wait outside for him while he paid for the candy. I realized now he didn't want to be seen with me. I waited outside by my bicycle for the man to come out. I thought hard about leaving before he came out, and almost did, but I really wanted my candy. I figured I'd just get my candy and take off. But when he came out, as he handed me the candy, he told me that he had a really cool car that he wanted me to see and asked me to walk out to the parking lot with him. Again, I said okay. As we started walking, I started getting a strong feeling that something wasn't right here and that I needed to get out of there. One smart thing I did do is insist that I take my bike with me, so I kept it between us. He led me out to the farthest edge of the parking lot. Beyond that was just an empty field. No buildings and no roads. His car was parked so that the passenger door was faced away from the store. The car was a Volkswagen Beetle, beige or tan in color, and in good condition, maybe new. I stopped and looked at it, but kept my distance. He opened the passenger door for me to see in. I smiled and nodded obediently. Then he asked me if I wanted to sit in it. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. I told him that my mom was waiting for me to get home and that I'd better go, in a nervous prattle. I was surprised and relieved when he didn't object. He said okay and goodbye. I jumped on my bike and left him standing there. I pedaled as fast as I could and didn't look back. When I got home, I sat in the recliner in our living room and ate my candy, thinking about what happened. I did not tell anyone. I guess I was afraid. Afraid that what I thought just happened didn't really happen. Afraid I would get in trouble for not handling it right. Afraid of making my parents mad or scared or whatever. I didn't want the attention, so I didn't tell anyone, ever. Until I was in my 40s. I finally told my mom, and I regret it because she cried. The only description I gave her of the man is vague. One reason is because I was too shy to look him straight in the face, and he was very average. Average height, average weight, not really young but not old, white skin, maybe brown hair but not too dark. I don't remember what he was wearing. I wish I had told and that authorities were notified, because even if it wasn't Bundy, it was a creep on the prowl for young girls, and I'm sure he eventually found one or more that didn't ride away on their bike. My mom called me and told me this story randomly about a year ago because she was watching a Dr. Phil episode about Ted Bundy. She was just casually watching when they showed a picture of Ted Bundy's tan Volkswagen Beetle, and her heart sank because she recognized it. This was a time when she made the connection that the creepy man from the Jewel Osco store may have been Ted Bundy. I've done some research trying to figure out if he was in Illinois around that time, but it's been hard without more details. My family moved to a small village in 1979. The village is along the highway where our people are originally from. We lived there for about 4 years, and then we moved back to our small old town. It was a sad homecoming, as I came back to no friends whatsoever. My mother had agreed to send me during the summer for short visits with my best friend and cousin Laverne. I think it was 1986. I was 12 years old. I went there to visit, and it was the same cute little place. Stifling hot as always in the summer, and nothing to do but go to the arcade and play some video games. Her and I went there until around 10:30 or so. It wasn't a far walk to her house. We stopped at the train tracks and lit a joint. We stood in the dark passing it back and forth. We chatted about whatever we did since the last time we hung out, and it was nothing much being that we were still just kids. At the train crossing, we stood at what used to be my house. It had burned down not long after we left, but still stood the small shed with one window that we never used. The glass was long gone and so was the door. We could see right through the shed as the door was perfectly aligned with the window. It was a fairly bright night with no clouds and a huge moon above. Her and I had been staring at the shed for absolutely no reason at all when a long, skinny shadow of a person stood up into the window. I felt my heart sink and the world around me turning. I looked at my friend and she was still watching it, her eyes wide open and her mouth gaping. I looked back and saw it start to climb out the window. "Run," she whispered with a shaking voice I had never heard from her before. We ran as fast as we could down the road and around the bend until we reached her house. We stopped at the light pole, looked back from where we came from and didn't see anything. We listened and didn't hear anything either. She said, "Look at me." I looked up and she asked, "Do I look stoned?" I shook my head, but I didn't actually comprehend her question whatsoever. She said, "You do." She said, "Just keep your head down and let's get into my room." We went into the house and did as we planned. I asked her what she thinks that was. She replied, "It was probably just Vince trying to scare us." We didn't talk about it again. Eventually, I stopped going for visits and we drifted apart for many years. Last year, 2025, I went on a small vacation. I had to stop in her city, so I messaged her on Facebook Messenger. I told her what hotel I would be at. She came to visit, and we talked about a lot of stuff that went on in our lives. I brought up the shadow, and she told me something I nearly stopped breathing to. She said that she went to walk to the store during the winter. She took the small road leading past the old cemetery that lays in the middle of our village. It was too cold to walk all the way around, so she just went for it. She got a shortcut through the road when she saw a shadow climb up from behind a stack of lumber. It stood tall and stared at her. It didn't seem to have eyes or even anything that resembled a face, but she could feel its energy burning into her. She stopped in her tracks and started to back up. When it jumped off the lumber, she turned and ran. She was quite pregnant at the time, so running with any sort of speed was impossible. She got close to the main road. A hand stretched in front of her face and covered her eyes. She couldn't see anything now. Pitch black and trying to escape, she tripped and fell into the ditch. Unable to see, she just yelled Jesus. It wasn't like a curse, it was more like a prayer. When she yelled it, the hand slid off her face. She saw its long skinny fingers slide to the side and disappear. She looked around and it was gone. I sat there in disbelief. I had been having reoccurring nightmares of the exact same thing happening to me for many, many years. Same road, same hand, same word. I haven't had the dream since we discussed this, and I hope I never have it again. Sometimes I feel the need to drive back just to look down that road and pray. I pray it never finds us again. To give some context, it was June 2019. I was 19 years old and had just gotten my driver's license. In Mongolia, extended family trips is pretty common during the summer, with my grandparents, cousins, siblings, aunties, and everyone. My parents divorced when I was young, and my mom couldn't go on this trip, so she asked me to drive my dad's old car with my little brother in this trip. I was not that worried, but was actually excited to have more freedom and independence. We loaded up and went to my grandma's house and helped them load up things into our pickup truck. Me and my little brother added some stuff that couldn't fit in the other 5 cars in the pickup truck and moved on at around 7 p.m. We drove for about 2 hours till we reached a big store called Namen. It's kind of like a Mongolian Walmart at the edge of the city to buy supplies. I don't know why, but it's more of a tradition that every family follows. Then we drove straight through until 3 a.m. I was having the time of my life while smoking freely with energy drinks and loud music. But I got interrupted by my grandma calling me and told me that one of the cars was having a problem. So we headed back to the location and had to sleep close to the main road. I remember how cold it was that night, even though it was the middle of summer. We got to the location and prepared our tents and slept. The next morning I woke up with kids bustling around and old folks talking while drinking a tea. Moreover, my grandma's sister came out around 2 p.m. with a spare wheel. The men fixed the car while the kids cleaned up. By afternoon, we were ready to continue. We drove all day on dirt roads, occasionally stopping to pee and refuel on gas. The older guys taught me a trick with Google Maps offline. Load it while you get a signal and it stays up there. And when you get another signal or service, it gets updated. It made sense at the time. We drove till midnight non-stop following one of the cars in a half-working map, but at some point my brother had to pee and I had too. We stopped and took care of it, and we got back into the car and started driving again, but they were gone. Since I was confident that I'm following the right path Google Maps was showing me, I thought maybe they stopped at some point or went the wrong way, so I thought nothing much of it. But at some point, I had to verify that I'm actually going the right way. I decided to keep driving to get near a cell tower or settlement to call them, or even find the others. After about an hour of driving, it was around 1:30 a.m. My brother was sleeping in the back seat, so I decided to pull over to take a pee and light up a cigarette or two. I turned on my emergency lights so that way they know where I am if they never caught up. And right when I was about to light my cigarette, I smelled something. It was kind of like rotten eggs mixed with something else. something organic and very wrong. The sky was clear, the moon was bright, and there was no trees anywhere, just empty desert. I looked around to investigate the smell and saw something about 8 meters in front of me, a pink blanket, rolled up. I decided to check what it was without thinking much about it, but what I saw next would stay with me forever. It was a child's body, very small, about the size of an average man's forearms. The eyes were hollowed out, patches of skin were missing from its face, not to mention the intense smell. I stood there dazed, not knowing what to do. Then I saw something. A black shadow flashed across my eyes. I didn't look back. My whole body screamed at me, "Don't look back. Never look back." I felt like something was behind me. I ran to my car, got in, and drove like a crazy person. I didn't stop until I reached the main road. I don't remember clearly what happened on the way to the main road. I'm not actually sure there was a thing chasing me, but I only perfectly remember the fear I felt and just feeling like something was hunting me. When I finally checked my rear window kilometers later, there was nothing, just empty desert, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something or somebody was watching me. I reached the main road around 2:48 a.m. I called the police when I got a signal. They told me to wait there, and 2 police officers took me to the station. They asked me everything, what I saw, where, when, how, and landmarks. I told them all I could remember, and they let me go and said be prepared to get called into the station again. I never woke up my brother. I didn't want him to get scared. I told him we were getting gas. I called my family and caught up to them, and turned out we were going the wrong way. We continued on our journey. The rest of the trip was uneventful, but I couldn't sleep properly for months afterwards. Weeks later, the police called me back to the station. They said they found the pink blanket I described, but there was no body. They asked me if I had seen anybody nearby, blood or signs of a body being dragged. I told them I wasn't sure if I saw a person, but I actually did see a black shadow. It's too vague to give them any leads. I haven't heard anything about the case now for years, but recently I learned that there had been a series of kidnappings in that region, around the same time we were there. I don't know if they were actually connected, or what that black shadow was, and what actually happened to the body and where it went, but the fact that they actually found the blanket made me reassure myself that I wasn't hallucinating, and it made me even more terrified. I still remember the feeling of extreme fear and being chased perfectly.